I'm gonna get lit up when the lights go up in London. I'm gonna get lit up as I've never been before.
This final programme tells the story of the closing years of the war, when people on the home front at last began to sense victory.
Visible for miles, the city will sit up when the lights go up in London. We'll all be lit up as the Strand was, only more, much more. And before the party's played out, they will festify brigade out to the littest upper scene you ever saw. I'm gonna get unsedately, so serenely stinking. I'm gonna get stinking as I've never been before. When the dogs have had their day and the fight has had its fray, we'll all be swapping battle dress for bottle dress that day. I'm gonna get positively, permanently pie-eyed the day we finally exterminate the Huns. There'll be joy and there'll be laughter and there'll be no morning after. For we'll all be drunk for months and months and months.
That evening, when the children were in bed, I realized...
As our boys overseas pressed on towards victory, the women they'd left behind stepped out of the shadows, with a little help from the government propaganda department. Here were the heroines of the home front, the wives and sweethearts keeping a fire in the hearth and a whole array of masculine symbols on the mantelpiece until the boys came home. The cruel truth was that in wartime Britain, more marriages were breaking down than at any previous time in our history. The pressures of unnatural separation and a greater social freedom for women were taking their toll. The government responded with a highly publicised campaign to keep couples together by improving the communication channels between servicemen and their wives.
For many months now, we have been sending spoken messages from Canadians in Britain to their folk at home. Now, here are messages from our boys in Italy to their relations in Britain. First, Staff Sergeant Alf Lindsay from Yorkshire.
Hello, Bertha, Maureen and Trevor. It is nice to be able to speak to you once again. My 5 years are nearly up, and I hope to be with you all soon. Hope you all spend a happy Christmas, and I'm looking forward to spending the next one with you. Cheerio, lots of love, and we'll have Hitler in the bag this year.
Driver Alex Burt, a Scotsman.
Hello, Lex, Moore and Feather. This is a grand chance to speak to you. It's much better than waiting. I'm keeping fit and well. Hope you're all doing the same. But I wish I was back in with you amongst that snow of the new. I hope you received the parcels and money I sent you, Mo, and you too, Lex. Give my love to the family. I hope to be with you all soon. All the best. Cheerio. All my love, darling. I'm always in love with you.
And now, a Londoner, a signalman R. Weaver, Royal Court of Signals.
Hello, Ethel. Hope you have some sweets left for Francis. Hope you are both fit and well. Also, Mum and Dad. I should like to be with Dad when he receives Wall's MM. Hope Frank's recovery was a success. Hope to be with you shortly when this job is completed out here. All my love, darling, with a big hunt for Francis. Cheerio.
Besides his love, your man in the forces will now be able to send you his voice for 1 and 9pence. It's a natty-naffy idea. At many of the naffy clubs overseas, recording rooms have been installed where the men can come and actually speak the messages they want to send to their people at home. The sender says his little piece into an ordinary hand microphone, and he can either read from a prepared script or choose from a number of stock phrases. As he speaks, his voice is recorded on the disc, which is a piece of specially coated aluminium 5 inches across and weighing less than half an ounce. The complete recording machine weighs only 60 pounds and is easily carried. When the recording's finished, the message is played back, and if the sender likes, he can say a real mouthful, as much as 180 words worth. The postal record is placed in a special envelope labelled Voices of the Forces, and on it is written the name and address of a friend or relative at home. Hundreds of discs at a time are flown to Britain for posting. Comes the great day when the postman brings the message to the house. The voice has arrived. George's voice. The voice that Mrs. George said old George seemed to like to hear the sound of. Perhaps she shouldn't have said that, for she'd give a lot to have George back right now. Oh well, you know what it is. With these discs, old needles are the best, as new ones are hard on the surface, and with old needles, the record can be played at least 200 times.
Hello, Ethel, darling. George speaking. Here's a little surprise for you. I hope you are well. And how are you, Mum and Dad? Lots of love to you, Eileen. And a biscuit for you, Toby. Met any nice rats lately? We have out here. I miss you all very much, and I'm looking forward to the time when there'll be no more partings. I am in the pink as usual. All my love, George.
The streets of town.
Ah, but there was other love in the air, especially when servicemen came home on leave.
The band struck up A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square, and we danced and sang. I looked at the other dancers, how attractive they looked and what a variety of uniforms. Many of the ladies wore uniform. Others were wearing long dresses. Then the air raid warning wailed. Some left, but the band played on and many continued to dance.
As light as the tap dancing feet of a stair, and like an echo far away, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square.
And the world's most famous crooner even turned up to bless the romance.
Amor, amor, amor. When you're away, there is no day, and nights are lonely. Amor, amor, my love. Say you'll be mine, make life divine, and love me only. Amor, amor. That's the way Frankie does it. Amor.
Meet you at the Nuffield Club. That's a remark you often hear among servicemen and women in London. To walk through the thickly carpeted reception hall just off Piccadilly Circus is like going into a luxury hotel, except for the prices. Everyone's the guest of a millionaire, Lord Nuffield, whose aim in financing the club is to give a day's entertainment for less than a day's pay. There's everything for those off-duty hours, amusements, relaxation, something to read, a place to meet your friends, your wife, your sister, or somebody else's sister. This sergeant pilot has a very special date and he doesn't want to waste any time. Is it? Yes, it is. She's heard all about the Nuffield Club from other girls at her station, but it's her first visit and she's wondering if Roy has managed to turn up. First, there's the matter of food to be settled. No need to go outside the club for this. In the basement, you can get a West End meal at anything but West End prices. There's no tipping of cloakroom attendants or anything like that, and nothing to pay for service, because you fetch your own food in this cafeteria. No expensive restaurant could provide a better meal, or more intimate surroundings.
The music,
for all
the food, the wine, and all that danger in the air. It was a heady mixture, and it turned clubs like the Nuffield into unofficial marriage bureau.
I borrowed my wedding dress of white velvet, long veil and tiara of artificial orange blossom. My bouquets arrived, cream tea roses and lily of the valley. Muriel's was of anemones. All's well, my fears forgotten. We came down the aisle to the wedding march. There were no church bells. Church bells meant invasion. The reception was held in the oak room of the local picture house cum restaurant. We had ham salad, trifle, white wine, one glass only for the toast, and a two-tiered cake covered with iced cardboard. We honeymooned in the Lake District. The week fled by and I was soon back at camp. I missed Tom dreadfully.
If there was one thing more glamorous than an Englishman in a uniform, it was an American. Yes, our allies had arrived to strike joy in the hearts of British women and fear in the hearts of British men.
Trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man at his craft. But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a blowin' reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he couldn't jam. The captain seemed to understand, because the next day the cap went out and drafted a band. And now the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. A toot, a toot, a toot-a-toot, a toot, he blows it eight to the bar. In boogie rhythm, he can't blow a note unless the bass and guitar is playing with him. He makes a company jump when he plays reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. He was a boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B.
Under the towering background of St. Paul's, past the bleak foundations of vanished buildings, march American troops. 300 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and marines. During the periods when the band is not playing, the only sounds above the cheering are the tap of drums and the faint pad of rubber-soled service boots. Then through London's battle-scarred streets there comes the stirring sound of martial music.
One day, while in Lichfield, a gang of us heard a brass band playing over there. Yes, the Yanks had come. There they were, marching through the city to Whittington Barracks, 2 miles east of Lichfield. They soon took over. They had bigger lorries, bigger tanks, better uniforms, bigger mouths, and rumour had it, bigger... They wooed the British girls with nylons, candy and gum, and always had plenty of whiskey. They had charm, all right, but discipline was slack. We got one of our lads to walk us 4 miles back to the camp, as there would be a Yank lurking behind every bush.
Brother men of the force which swept victoriously through the Solomon Islands. Evacuation in the path of war.
The Americans were a conspicuous presence, and inevitably an intrusive one. Whole villages in southwest England had to be evacuated so that American servicemen could be trained in the sort of landscape they'd soon be fighting in. Local resentment simmered for some months, and in the end the government had to step in and boost compensation payments to all those dispossessed villagers. Newsreels gave just a hint of this trouble brewing in the shires.
Every effort is made to relieve the inevitable disruption to those affected. There is no denying the fact that livelihoods have suffered. Compensations are being made and billets found for the evacuated people. Even so, individual cases present problems. It's a big upheaval which the country folk are meeting with a splendid spirit. General Devers has called them our unsung heroes. They have accepted the blow because they realize that by their sacrifice, men will be better fitted for the coming invasion of Europe. The countryman is giving up all this because the call has been made for the training over sizable areas of new divisions. When Britons are subjected to stress, be it a raid or a notice to quit, they invariably find comfort in a cup of tea. Landsmen are giving much, and American soldiers will respect their sacrifice.
The Americans, who were somehow welcomed and resented with equal fervour, even brought their own flashy culture with them. A chorus line, a choir, a soft shoe routine, mix with a gallon of schmaltz and serve instantly. Their showbiz glamour was admired, but in ration-deprived Britain, their swaggering prosperity was often a pain in the neck. But they tried hard to be considerate guests, and even issued all American servicemen with a booklet on how to behave in the company of the British. If you're invited to eat with a family, don't eat too much, otherwise you may eat up the family rations. Don't try to tell the British that America won the last war. Never criticize the king or queen. No one could doubt that the Americans had given wartime Britain a new energy and buzz. Their culture was becoming our culture. We were all singing the songs of an honorary GI called Irving Berlin.
The army's made a man out of me, a man out of me, a man out of me. My mother and my father agree, the army has made me a man. I used to sleep with brother, but now I sleep alone. I used to be a tenor, but now I'm a baritone. My girl said when she sat on my knee, the army has made me a man.
Get together is the keynote of the Anglo-American scheme.
Anglo-American cooperation was now the government's watchword. American and British servicemen were posted to one another's units on a sort of exchange scheme. This improved military understanding, but increased social tensions. Americans were paid twice as much, and with their smarter uniforms and Hollywood-style accents completely outmaneuvered their British rivals in the coveted fields of romance and sex.
How those GIs could shoot a line, and how we loved it. Almost every night found me dancing on an excellent but crowded floor to one of America's top-line orchestras.
Social and sexual rivalries were finally unimportant. With D-Day imminent, it was vital that American and British troops trained together.
This attachment is one of many which are being arranged to increase the understanding between American and British troops in anti-aircraft command. While you're here, you'll be attached to different sections and gun teams and will work and train with members of this unit. In other words, you'll become part of the unit in every way. And I welcome you as I would if you were actually joining us. I hope your stay here will be very enjoyable, and I hope we shall both derive a great deal of benefit from it.
Hey, ho! Hey, ho!
The build-up was now becoming intense as Allied servicemen prepared for the greatest military enterprise in history, the invasion of occupied Europe that was known by the mysterious code word D-Day. Whatever the private feuds, it was essential that Anglo-American relations keep a smiling public face. And they did.
It's all a matter of getting to know the other fella. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Well, buddy, I guess it's been pretty swell having you guys with us.
It's jolly decent of you, old boy. It's been a grand show.
These boys are right guys and good types.
There was much talk of when and where the invasion would take place. There'd been much coming and going of troops of all nationalities. The rumours were widespread, and the feeling in the air that it would be soon grew daily. I had a WAF girl, Joyce, and her husband billeted here. She was on radar, that much we knew. Joyce went on duty that night as usual, but she didn't return for 2 days. All night there was a roar of aircraft and the roads were blocked with lorries coming south. We heard the news and prayed.
On the 6th of June 1944, the great secret is divulged. While civilian Britain sleeps, history's greatest story is being written. Between midnight and breakfast, the D-Day plan is launched. And when the news breaks, the people at home rush to buy it. Eagerly they absorb every line of the rationed information as it comes to hand. The news is good, far better than they dared to hope. Bridgeheads are won, we penetrate inland, airstrips are under construction, and best of all, casualties amazingly light.
But even as they rejoiced at the success of the invasion, civilians found themselves in peril again. For the first time since the Blitz, the skies of southern England hurled down destruction.
Germany's indiscriminate bombing methods run riot in the use of her latest terror weapon, the flying bomb. Caught in the beams of searchlights, one of Hitler's robots, launched from the French coast, is met by our newly designed countermeasures. Anti-aircraft guns figure largely in their destruction. Spitfire pilot gets in a successful burst. An RAF pilot of one of our new Tempest aircraft and an intelligence officer examine the wreckage of one brought down. Parts salvaged from such wreckage have been pieced together to disclose structural secrets. The Prime Minister, accompanied by Mrs. Churchill, visits anti-aircraft gun sites which are tackling flying bombs. He wears the uniform of Colonel of the Royal Sussex Regiment, moving from battery to battery and hearing the scores recorded by gun crews. At one site, Mr. and Mrs. Churchill met their daughter Mary, who is in charge of the plotting by the ATS. Many people not in the south of England have yet to see and hear one of these missiles. Fighters of Air Defence of Great Britain get on the trail. Pathé cameraman Terry Ashwood photographs a kill.
Women who'd evacuated their children during the Blitz and then brought them home when they thought it was safe suddenly felt threatened again.
The flying bombs began to come over, first in ones and twos, and then all day long. As soon as one had passed over, you began to breathe again, another would come. And so it went on.
London under the flying bomb. Battle of Britain conditions return in the form of robot warfare on the capital. It's a civilian battle again. Citizens are both the target and the defenders. Every day, folk don their steel helmets and take duty on the rooftops. The bomb spotters who keep watch during daytime alerts and sound the warnings when immediate danger threatens. London's wartime calendar of experience may be set back 4 years, but the people adjust themselves to the frontline peril and carry on. The question of moving children from danger is immediately tackled. Past experience lends a hand in the smooth running of evacuation. Many thousands of youngsters are sent away from London into districts where the indiscriminate flying bomb doesn't reach. Whole schools and kiddies of anxious families moved from the terrors of blast and flying glass. The youngsters whom the Germans have no compunction in killing in their orgy of scatterbombing. To the northwest of England come the Doodlebug Expresses, as the children nickname the evacuation specials. Some of the young nuts of Knutsford en route to safety and friendly billets. Pathé cameraman Jerry Summers tags along beside the lines of children who get quite a little thrill at being in the eye of the newsreel. A quintet from America waves a greeting as the London County Council evacuation parties arrive at their rest centres. Plenty of willing hands and friendly folk are there to make the experience a pleasant one. While London fights the flying bomb, the children are being taken good care of. 8 new deep shelters are now open for the accommodation of Londoners. Over 100 feet underground, they're the last word in design. Double staircases and emergency lifts bring you into well-appointed quarters. Each has accommodation for 8,000 people who will sleep in tiered bunks. Precautions against the spreading of infection are thorough. Families are provided with cubicles in these shelters. Staffs of hospital nurses, doctors and ambulance crews have been appointed. The medical aid posts...
So, for the first time since the Blitz, Londoners found themselves living underground again like moles, while the streets above were blasted by flying bombs. Happily, there was a light at the end of this converted tunnel. Allied troops were about to capture and completely disable Germany's rocket bases.
Wrecked V-2 rockets, rooted out of their forest hideout, mark the defeat of this terror weapon, Hitler's last fling at Britain. These are the ones that didn't reach the address on the label. V2s killed or injured more than 9,000 people in London, East Anglia and the southern counties. Now, abandoned fuel tanks and mobile launching vehicles are a reminder of the war's deadliest one. 1,050 V2s were fired across the North Sea at England. In the trail of damage they left was the Chelsea Hospital, hit in January. This is what a V2 did to Stroud Green, London, also in January. Scene of another V2 incident was Smithfield Market. Here the camera caught a man whose job is now done. London's Regional Commissioner, Admiral Evans of the Broke. As Mr. Churchill said, V2 is finished thanks to the RAF and the British Army.
As Allied forces pushed on towards Berlin, they opened the barbed wire cages that had held British prisoners of war. In the spring of 1945, liberated servicemen arrived at British ports in a joyous flood and headed for home.
Sirens sound the traditional cock-a-doodle-doo welcome, which hitherto has been reserved for ushering in the new year. Each phase of their returning is a thrill which they
spilt out of the trains at hundreds of stations across Britain and were embraced by a grateful nation. And among them was a veteran who'd seen action round the world, Pathé News cameraman Ken Gordon.
May I take your minds back to some of the pictures I've been honoured to film for Pathé Gazette. Pictures that illustrate our triumphs after the breakout from Falaise. Paris, where I had to take pictures while being chased by a couple of tanks and the French commandant of Paris. They thought my jeep was getting in the way of General de Gaulle's parade. At Notre Dame, fired on by friend and foe in a burst of street fighting, and with only a camera to hit back with. After being shot up along the road through France, the rush to Brussels, there to be overpowered with bottles of wine, flowers and kisses. Next day, while photographing our tanks as they came through, I was roughly pushed aside by a Belgian girl. Just in time, the crashing wall missed me by inches. A moment I'm proud of, being on Nijmegen Bridge while the Royal Engineers cleared away German explosives. Tanks were coming up to relieve our airborne boys at Arnhem. Waves of American paratroops were dropped to help hold off the counterattack. The sight of hundreds of multicolored parachutes falling in orderly masses will always live in my mind. In a Buffalo with our fighting patrols, I took my first look at the Rhine alongside Colonel Howard Jones, whom I met again when Monty decorated him with the DSO and MC. I crossed the river with this gallant officer. It was before it was bridged. Here I am on the Rhine filming the first British bridge. From the West Bank I went up with the infantry patrols, grand fellows who had just smashed through the Reichswald and the Siegfried Line. I beat an official bar at Lüneburg Heath, just in time to film the German surrender. The great help Field Marshal Montgomery and his staff gave me enabled me to take these pictures of the climax to a magnificent British victory.
This was the British people's finest day. VE Day, the end of the German war. Throughout the country, at homes and at work, a nation exploded with spontaneous rejoicing for a great and wonderful deliverance. scarred the face of Britain, but nothing ever sapped or changed the character of our people.
When the war finally came to an end, every street held a party for the children. Trestle tables laden with cakes, jelly, sausage rolls and sandwiches were laid out in the middle of the road and a huge bonfire was lit. The men rigged up floodlighting in all our gardens and put fairy lights in all the trees. We had games for the children and dancing for the adults. It was a night to remember for us all. And to add to the joy, one of our road who had been a prisoner of war was released. He walked into his home just in time to join the party. His family was thrilled. We all were.
Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May. But in the interest of saving lives, the ceasefire began yesterday to be sounded along all the fronts. The German war is therefore at an end. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing. Today is Victory in Europe Day.
I was staying with my aunt in London and was taken up west with many thousand of cheering, laughing, crying, singing people. I had never seen anything like it and was totally unprepared for a bear hug from an American soldier who lifted me right off my feet and swung me round and landed me a smacking kiss. Hallelujah! Later, we gathered outside Buckingham Palace. Who cares about rain? We began to chant, "We want the king! We want the king!"
Glad? What an understatement. Forgotten how we felt? Never. Not if I lived 1,000 years. In London, after the deprivations, danger and heartache, we went crazy. We had the day off work. My friend and I went to the West End. We moved with the crowds down the mall to Buckingham Palace. We want George! We want Elizabeth! Was rewarded with their Majesties' balcony appearances. The people were in the thousands. Everyone singing, dancing, kissing. The crowd was so dense, anyone fainting was lifted horizontal above the crowds and carried off to cheers.
A man we seem to have seen before somewhere looks down from a balcony in Whitehall.
I remember
remember the thrill and relief after the previous day's waiting for the Prime Minister's announcement of the end of the war in Europe. My parents went out on the balcony in response to the huge crowds outside. I think we went on the balcony nearly every hour, 6 times. And then when the excitement of the floodlights being switched on got through to us, my sister and I realized we couldn't see what the crowds were enjoying. My mother had put her tiara on for the occasion, so we asked my parents if we could go out and see for ourselves. I remember we were terrified of being recognized, so I pulled my uniform cap well down over my eyes. A grenadier officer amongst our party of about 16 people said he refused to be seen in the company of another officer improperly dressed. So I had to put my cap on normally. We cheered the King and Queen on the balcony and then walked miles through the streets. I remember lines of unknown people linking arms and walking down Whitehall, all of us just swept along on a tide of happiness and relief. I remember the amazement of my cousin, just back from 4.5 years in a prisoner of war camp, walking freely with his family in the friendly throng. And I also remember when someone exchanged hats with a Dutch sailor, a poor man coming along with us in order to get his cap back. After crossing Green Park, we stood outside and shouted, "We want the King." And we were successful in seeing my parents on the balcony, having cheated slightly because we sent a message into the house to say we were waiting outside. I think it was one of the most memorable nights of my life.
They will tell another generation how we celebrated Victory in Europe Day and how we thank the service chiefs who worked so valiantly to make it possible.
The Bavarians promptly went about the business of repair.
Germany was defeated, but the wounds of war hadn't healed. The first task was to rebuild the ports and towns that had been shattered by bombs. Builders worked overtime, but there weren't enough of them. So some old comrades in arms lent a hand.
Down in badly bombed Lambeth, 100 United States soldiers are busy lending a hand with demolition work. They're the first of the 3,000 who are generously helping with London's bomb repairs. Mr. Duncan Sands performs his first public ceremony as Minister of Works by thanking the dusty GIs on behalf of the people of London. He evidently didn't intend to waste time, for his words of appreciation lasted only 15 seconds. The Americans, too, are hustling. They're going to erect temporary houses on this site when they've cleared it. Thanks, GIs, for your help.
Emergency housing is being tackled in Tottenham, northeast London. American prefabricated homes provided under lease lend are built.
The builders and the planners couldn't move fast enough to house the hundreds of thousands that the war had made homeless. But one government scheme was a tremendous success: the introduction of prefabricated houses. A technological marvel of its day, the prefabricated house was a sort of assembly kit of building blocks that could be bolted together and made habitable in about 24 hours. It was the old wartime principle of utility dressmaking carried over into domestic architecture. It may never have been featured in House and Garden, but the prefab changed the post-war landscape of Britain and gave millions of families a leg up towards a better life.
People with collapsible legs can have a positively wizard time on bath nights. Now, don't let's go in there. We'll have a look at the kitchen. It's extremely compact, but well fitted on caravan lines.
This house of the future has no stairs, no dust-collecting wainscoting, and is intended to last about 10 years. Plenty of built-in cupboards are a welcomed feature. Married women on the staff of the Ministry of Works helped in the design. The kitchen is compact, but the initial blueprint didn't provide sufficient facilities for washing clothes. They're going to fix a small copper now in the bathroom. The refrigerator tops the list of the £80 worth of internal fittings built into Churchill Villa. hinged breakfast table is a space-saving idea. This show house can be seen in Millbank near the Tate Gallery, London. Tickets of admission obtainable from your local authority. Bedroom number 2 also has plenty of cupboards and, like the other rooms, is central heated. Housewives will want to know where to hang the washing in wet weather, and many may criticize the width of the hall. But here's one opinion.
I think it is very good indeed. For a small house for the men who are coming home and the women who have been working hard in the factories and want to get back to family life, I think it is an ideal house. Of course it is small, but the planning is good, and the house could easily be worked and would be most economical to run. I consider the kitchen, with a built-in refrigerator and such other useful equipments, a great advance in a working man's home and a step in the right direction.
Mr. and Mrs. Hancock of Clapham solved their housing problem in an original way. An 82-pound house built in jigsaw style from material salvaged from Blitz property. 12 months' work and well worth it.
We were bombed out in 1940, and we decided to build a house here from the bits and pieces we could find on the bomb damaged sites. We drew up some plans, and which was afterwards accepted, and as we had already 20,000 bricks, which cost us £5, we started away. I then started building with my wife, acting as labourer and foreman. The staircase cost 13 and 6, and I arrived just in time to save us being smashed for firewood. The front door cost 3 shillings. Dining room fireplace in oak cost 10 shillings. Refrigerator cost 10 shillings. And the windows cost 5 shillings to 3 and 6 each. The other doors cost a shilling each. The cupboards, the little cupboards, cost a shilling each. They all had to be repaired and overhauled. The tiles and glass and cement was the only new thing used in the building, and the total cost was £82 and not 1 penny more.
As Britain rebuilt its towns and cities, the war against Japan continued in the Far East. Then the Americans dropped the atomic bomb, and with shocking suddenness, the Japanese surrendered. Now it really was all over.
Midnight on Tuesday, August the 14th, 1945. Before the Prime Minister had finished his radio announcement that Japan had surrendered, London went wild, literally, absolutely, crazily wild. More than 100,000 people yelled their throats out every time the King and Queen and the princesses came out on the palace balcony. The hub of London seethed and rippled. Anybody who hadn't read the news had a human billboard to tell them Japan surrenders. The victory signal in Morse, and a reminder of the man who made it world famous, a man you and I were thinking of, a man called Winston Churchill. Everything climbable in this jam-packed city had been booked long before this, but the crowd is still growing. It was keep the home fires burning here, all right, and everything burnable from loose boardings to motor cars was apt to go up in smoke. At one celebrated pub, Charlie Brown's in Limehouse, all the nations rejoice that for the first time in 14 years, the whole world is at peace. The war of 1939-45 is over. It's that crowd again. Whether they're here from choice or whether they're jammed too tight to get out, nobody knows. But here they were and here they look like staying till morning. The King and Queen came out many times to acknowledge the cheers. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, where even the bonfires may be prefabricated, the long continuity of a nation. Peace night begins a new and glorious future.
Demobbed, they called it, meaning demobilized, surrendering your service uniform, collecting your last paycheck, and signing all those forms that were the hallmark of the new bureaucracy that would regulate post-war Britain. And oh yes, there was of course that ever-embarrassing last-minute medical.
Op shop, bag shop, cook 'em and book 'em.
The routine visit to the man who says, cough.
Yes, I suppose they've got to have a last look.
There's more to come. Ministry of Health, Ministry of Labour, notification to records, but it's worth it. Goodbye to the playbook. It's that money again.
Oh, I like that bit.
The RAF shop window looks better equipped than most civvy stores.
The demobilisation procedure worked smoothly enough until I went for my demob suit. A soldier took a few measurements and without saying a word handed me a bundle of clothes. The jacket was tight under the arms and short in the sleeves. The trousers were inches short in the leg and inches to spare in the waist. I accepted the suit with an ill grace.
Nice smart check, like this.
Blimey, Maxie Miller.
Oh, like that. Well, there's something here a little quieter.
That's better.
Yes, we'll try that jacket on if you don't mind. See how it fits. Glad to be getting back home again?
Yes, indeed.
I'll bet you are too.
Gosh, I wonder what the missus will say to this outfit.
Well, how do you feel now, old boy?
I feel fine.
Well, cheerio.
You can't put me on the face now, old chap. Cheerio, boys. Cheerio.
The soldier's homecoming was an image almost too powerful for the camera. You could do it as a joke, or you could do it sentimentally, as the true story of lovers reunited, which is what Pathé did when they followed a real army sergeant down a country lane and watched him restored to the arms of his wife. A scene straight from the last reel of a Hollywood movie, except that the soldier was a real hero, returning from a real war to a real wife.
Two little girls who have yet to know a world at peace are waiting to welcome the daddy they can't remember. In his letters home, he told how he lived for the sound of a kettle singing on the hearth, to sit down once more to a cottage tea. These simple things are more than pleasures, they're luxuries. That other request has been remembered too. 5 years ago, this man was in the building trade. Homes are his specialty. There are things he has brought from across the sea, presents to make this lovely day fuller than any they have known.
As a family, we had been separated and now must learn to live together, overcoming the barriers set up by experiences which had not been shared. I thought of those who had been dear to us who had not lived to see this. Of John, who had stood at the altar with us on our wedding day, who had been trapped in his cockpit when his plane sank beneath the waves. Of Ron, constant companion of my brother since school days, who had vanished without a trace when his troop ship was sunk by the Japanese. Of Peter, who had been shot while trying to escape from the prisoner of war camp to which he'd been taken. They were all so young. I thought of them while I watched the sleeping faces of my children, whose lives lay before them in a world of peace.
Demobs will reach 1.5 million by the end of the year and 3 million by next June. Already back in Civvy Street with a hero's ticket is ex-Flight Lieutenant Edward Nold, DFC, who has changed his uniform for a uniform.
After 6 years flying in Bomber Command with the Pathfinder Force, blowing Germany to pieces, I am now back on the job again on the 16 route. It is perfectly wizard being back again.
The flood of ex-servicemen and women brings new vigour and a new outlook to every walk of life. Ex-Wren Petty Officer Pinnock leaves a Navy store for her old job.
Good morning, Miss Pinnock.
Good morning.
And how do you like being back in civilian life once again?
Well, it all feels very strange at first. The difference between selling costly fur coats in a famous Oxford Street store to issuing bell-bottom trousers to naval personnel.
Well, Simon Major, how do you like being back home again, Civvy Street?
Well, I don't know, given your old rank, RSM Alice. I don't mind it at all after having the base on the Narvik, Crete and El Alamein. I think Civvy's better than all that.
Not so bad, buddy. Up and down the apples and pears.
No. Well, Alice, old boy, putting all jokes on one side, with all the Army's good life, with all the lining up and queuing up, going without this, going without that, I'll tell you this much. You give me something in life, and I'm very pleased to be back on the old job again. What say you, chum?
Blimey, not off, buddy.
Now here's a man who typifies millions of ex-Tommy Atkins now falling right into the old breakfast time routine. Buried behind their morning papers, creatures of habit still, they're behaving exactly as they did the morning the last war broke out in 1939. On that day, too, they nearly missed the 8:15. A few 100,000 of them went from Dunkirk to Alamein and had business from the Pacific to the Rhine. Yes, they're quite a type.
The serviceman who'd come home and swapped his wartime uniform for a bowler and brolly became a national mascot. But the men who hadn't come home would not be forgotten. The nation prepared to remember them.
The people of Britain, those who fought and those who waited through the anxious years, pay solemn homage to the dead of 2 world wars. At the hushed crossways of empire, the king and his people met for the cenotaph service, the first for 7 years. Throughout the British Commonwealth of Nations, this same hour of 11 was being observed as the Great Silence, watched over by members of the royal family. Playing her first public part in the armistice ceremonial, Princess Elizabeth laid a wreath of poppies and bay leaves with the simple inscription, "In Remembrance." Quite near on the cenotaph steps, there was laid later in the day a bunch of flowers with this message: "In loving memory of a father killed at Ypres, 1917, and a husband killed at Caen, 1944. In such wise the nation remembers."
December the 25th, 1945, the first Christmas at peace that these children had known, but one that their father didn't live to see. In homes like this one all over Britain, they celebrated a season of goodwill that many had feared would never come again. They saluted the gallant dead and the resourceful living, and wondered at the strange powers of courage and invention that had enabled ordinary people like themselves to battle on, keeping the home fires burning until the darkness was defeated.
6 years of war, and now the traditions of our people are back, but they're singing to a new world.
Thank you, God, for a lovely day and for bringing Daddy home. Please don't take Daddy away again, ever.
The war memories of British servicemen are featured in our companion series of victory videos, Soldier, Sailor, Airman.